Everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. We are really pleased to welcome you for this joint webinar, CICA and FIIC. So before the FIIC president say a few words of introduction, I will just review some technical points with you. So the webinar is recorded, so it will be available on our website after the event. So you will be able to see the replay and share it on your social media. Also, please keep your microphone on mute during the webinar if you're not speaking. You will have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of the webinar, of course, to our guest speakers. And as the colleague said, if you would like to have the Spanish version of myself and of my colleagues, you have to select the Spanish language at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, Ivan, FIIC's president, if you would like to say a few words of introduction for this webinar, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, good afternoon in Europe. Thank you everyone for participating today. A special thanks to today's speakers. This is a very relevant subject for CICA and FIIC. That is why I will give the floor to Ivan Sech, President of the Inter-American Federation of the Construction Industry, for initial words, and then we will go forward with today's presentations. Thank you very much, Fernando. Good morning to everyone. This topic is truly a very important one in CICA's program and our federation's program, given that maintenance of infrastructure is approximately 60% of the investments made by countries in Latin America and around the world. With this, when there is a decrease of budgets that countries use for investment, which are ever scarcer, well, it is necessary to give value to what it means, the lack of maintenance of our infrastructure, its consequences, and obviously the topics that are part of today's webinar, basically the financing, the different ways to finance investments through private investment in public infrastructure. So, well, thank you again, everyone, all of you who decided to take some time to listen to this webinar. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, all the speakers that we will have today. And of course, I wanted to express the Federation's support to this important topic. Thank you so much, Ivan. And now starting formally with our program, the goal of today's meeting, CICA and FIIC's meeting, is to talk about the aspects of maintenance of existing infrastructure and face the challenges that such maintenance encompasses. I wanted to especially thank once again our speakers today, and in the first place, we will introduce Eric Lancelot. Born in France, he joined the World Bank in 2005, and he held different positions as specialist in transport for Latin America and Europe since 2005, that is. Between 2015 and 2019, he led the program for infrastructure and sustainable development for Western Africa. Later on, between 2015 and 2019, he did that for Central America, and he is currently lead specialist in transportation for Latin America and lead specialist in sustainability and development for resilient infrastructure and safe infrastructure, always at the World Bank. He has graduated as a transport engineer and economy of transportation from the National School of Public Works of France, and he holds a master's of by Paris Sorbonne, also in France. Thank you, Eric, so much. You have the floor.
Unmute me. So, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Let me share my screen. Is it?
Yes, it's coming.
Super. All right. So, I've been asked to give a presentation of what do we at the World Bank envision for road asset management, and what are the latest approach that the bank is pushing for. So let me go slide by slide and let me know if the presentation is moving. All right, is it? Yes, no?
Yes, it is moving, but it's the presenter mode.
Oh.
But it's okay if...
The presenter mode? What do you mean?
It's not in full screen mode.
Oh, it's full screen for me. So called. Let me unshare and share back. Let's see if it works like that. Usual issues that we have with this kind of applications. Does it work better? Or no?
It's still the presenter mode, but I think it's okay. You
Okay.
can...
So let me go to the one and let's see. This should be the one. Do you have it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me jump to the third slide. Fernando already made a presentation of who am I. So quickly, what is the World Bank? For the ones who do not know us, so the World Bank is this institution of the Bretton Woods Agreement post Second World War. The World Bank Group is composed of 5 main institutions: IBRD, which lends resources for middle-income countries; IDA, which provides credits for the lowest income countries; IFC, private sector; MIGA is for guarantees; and the EC is for the resolution of conflict. So although the World Bank was last year $73 billion, there's a stock of 12,000 projects. Just like last year, the bank out of the landed $73 billion I was mentioning through 323 projects. So we have a vision to create a world free of poverty and a livable planet with a mission to end extreme poverty and boost shared prosperity. So the World Bank portfolio is on transport, is 164 projects in 77 countries. There's these big, these both pizzas, no? We call it camembert in French, where we see the repartition relatively homogeneous, actually, of the interventions of the World Bank in the different regions. The World Bank it is organized in these 10 regions. On the right side of the graph, we see that road transport is an important, more than 50% of the portfolio of the bank is remains on road transport. And I think that it's a message that I'm going to have today, but I'm going to have more and more. Road transport is important. I know that there's a lot of pushback nowadays in all instances, saying that road is a dirty road mode of transport, but there is no question, road transport is absolutely necessary and will need to be to continue being supported. So this is the case for road infrastructure. Road transport is fundamental to inclusion, growth, and competitiveness. There are no, there is no society which works without the road. I mean, it starts looking back at what the Roman Empire was doing. They were building roads first thing. It is the basis of any exchange between human products, but also talks. No, so I think that road transport, road infrastructure is a global public good. It is the largest immobilized public asset in most countries, and it's been built cumulatively across generations. And the other thing is that obviously road transport has a key role on the climate change agenda, both on mitigation, on adaptation. Just like the three graphs are pretty much saying on how important is the investment in infrastructure, on the stock of infrastructure for the competitiveness on the inequality agenda. So road assets worldwide, what are we talking of? So those figures are the figures that we can have. Actually, we know that we don't know a lot on road infrastructure. We did an assessment in Peru using satellite data not long ago, which showed that there were 70,000 kilometers of roads, in addition to what the government was mentioning there was in the country. So we went from 150 to 220,000 kilometers. So the issue is well, there's an investment in road infrastructure which is growing, but as a percentage of GDP, we see that the investment is reducing over time. On this is a very serious issue because roads are deteriorating. It's a capital stock that needs to be capital asset that needs to be preserved. So where are the road networks? There is a serious imbalance between developed countries and countries in development. All the greens are areas where the roads have low density. So it's not a problem when we talk of Canada, the northern part of Canada, when the density of population is very low. It's much more problematic when you look at Africa or South America, where there's relatively high density of population, and clearly they are not served. Those statistics are interesting. 6% of the road networks are in sub-Saharan country. By the way, a good chunk of that is in South Africa, which covers this 17% of the emergent land. Look at the stats for the developed countries in comparison on the right side. Then it's not only a question of quantity of infrastructure, it's also a question of quality of infrastructure. I'm very proud to see that France is among the best countries, but France is France and is developed like many other developed countries. The road network are in pretty good conditions. When we see where roads are in pretty bad conditions, it's Africa and it's South America. The case of Russia is also interesting on the Central Asian countries. So roads in bad conditions are aligned with countries in poor conditions in terms of development. No, so the eggs on the chicken. So for sure, there is a lot of things to do to improve road infrastructure in the developing countries. How well are in terms of function of the roads, how well the roads are connecting people, goods, on making people access to work, jobs, on services. Again, we see these two lines, around the tropics. Again, it is where the countries are the poorest that the roads are playing their lowest, the worst role in terms of connectivity. As a matter of fact, I mean, many of those countries highlighted in these intertropical zones are roads which are unpaved, on which suffer obviously issues of climate events, on impeding accessibility, impeding connectivity. So last slide of the first part, which is giving a broad overview of the situation. We've been hearing a lot about PPP. Well, PPP is not going to resolve everything in road infrastructure. We know that some sectors are much more prone to private sector participation on full financing of the service by private sector participation. ICT, the digital development is part of them. On energy is probably also part of it. We know that in transport it's going to be lower, same as in water. Transport is one of these basic good that might not be monetized systematically. So there is as much as what can be done in terms of tolling of road infrastructure to pay for the road asset management. So let me jump to the second part on this is really what we are up to right now. It's why is it important, the road asset management? So first of all, what we see in most countries is that there's this vicious circle of road in bad conditions, which suddenly call the attention of politicians, which then plea for the governments to set the required budget. By the way, in most countries, the budgets are decided at the parliamentary level. So there's strong incentives for the politicians to dedicate sufficient resources for road assets. There's big program of rehabilitation which are being structured whenever those are structured, which is not systematically the case in every countries of the world. Then the road conditions are getting slightly better over the years. On after 5-10 years, the attention of politicians drawn down because there is no more complaints from citizens about the road, and then the road is deteriorating again. So this cycle repeats. We've observed that in many countries in the world, and that has a cost which is absolutely huge for the countries. And we'll see that in detail later. So the idea that we are having now, and that's a strategy of the bank, is to break this vicious cycle by pushing for long-term consistency of road asset management. On this will be it's an absolute priority, and this will be done through more private sector involvement in this road asset management. So what are the potential impacts? So first of all, there's the impact on inclusion. Roads which are in bad condition impede access to service, jobs, market, impede connection of people. It's also the growth and competitiveness agenda. Remember, that's the two priorities of the World Bank. Reducing the cost of operation of vehicle, logistics cost, and time lost in transport will increase the national competitiveness. We get more in detail there. It has also, and that's the plea that we're making with the ministries of finance. It has also fiscal impact. Improve efficiency of expenditure in the sector can be reached through what we are going to introduce later, the performance-based contract we call CREMA in South America. It is 20 to 50% saving on what is in general relatively high share of the nation's budget spending. It has also the possibility to mobilize private capital to finance the road infrastructure. There is no discrepancy with what I was saying about tolling. No, we can mobilize private sector participation without necessarily having tolls. Okay. Then after there's the third bucket, which is on the climate change, on road safety. Those are two very important sectorial strategies that are emerging strongly. Road asset management improve resilience and reduces emissions. It's a given fact. No better road reduce the level of emissions and obviously reduce the vulnerability of the infrastructure. Last but not least, we have the pandemic, which is repeated consistently every year. The UN Decade of Action in 2011-2020 didn't manage to reduce by half. So it repeated the same objective, reducing by half the number of deaths on casualties. The countries are embarking on that, but it's still a dreadful, there are dreadful consequences to road safety, part of which are economics. We're talking of 5% of the GDP lost in traffic accidents in many countries. No? So why is it important in fiscal terms? So first of all, no maintenance amplifies the road infrastructure deterioration. There's a factor 3 only between a reconstruction and the rehabilitation. If we don't do periodic maintenance regularly, the reconstruction costs will be much more costly than the sum of the periodic maintenance and regular maintenance. We just did a simulation in the past days on Jamaica based on just like high-level figures, but we can have on a yearly basis 10 or 15% of extra cost with this kind of policies which do not favor proactive maintenance. The second aspect of it. So first of all, the cost of works are more expensive. No, when maintenance is not done, the management of the road infrastructure is not done adequately. The second is that no management, no maintenance, which is a fact that we observe systematically everywhere, accelerates the deterioration of the road infrastructure. So that means that there's going to be more frequent need of periodic maintenance, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. So that's add another layer of cost in the fiscal management of the country, which is not going to be seen on a yearly basis, but on the cycle of the infrastructure. And last but not least, what we observe is that actually no maintenance after the construction or the rehabilitation of the road is something which is totally embedded, seen natural by the road engineer. So that leads to over-dimension of solutions, whether decided by the engineers or whether in the norms themselves. So that's the third level of cost. Solutions are more expensive. There are more frequent needs for rehabilitation, and the cost of rehabilitation/reconstruction is higher than it should be if the road infrastructure was appropriately managed. So it's a disaster in terms of fiscal management. But that's one side of the coin. This is actually the small side of the coin. The big side of the coin is the road user costs, which with an average relatively bad condition of the road increase substantially the road user cost. In most of the studies that we are doing to analyze the justification of a rehabilitation project, we observe that the ratio between the costs related on vehicle operating on road users compared to the cost fiscal costs is in the range of 70 to 80%, meaning that if you do $100 million reduction of fiscal costs by improving the way you're going to manage the efficiency of expenditure, the efficiency of the contract that you're going to use to manage the road infrastructure, to maintain the road infrastructure. Four times more is going to be gained if the infrastructure is effectively well managed and the road conditions are good. So what's the solution here for paved road networks? No, we call it CREMA in Latin America. It stands for rehabilitation and maintenance contract. Okay, contrato de rehabilitación y mantenimiento, o rehabilitation, contrato de rehabilitação e manutenção em português. Okay, então, what are we talking of here? So those long-term performance-based contracts, I mean, there's not so much anything new here on those contracts. I think that the thing is that after years of testing, of piloting them, we're getting to a point where it is the moment really to change to change the gear, to give shift the paradigm of road asset management. So it's been introduced in Latin America in '97. It's been introduced in other countries also of the world, more often than the bank. The Latin America, basically, particularly Brazil, offers a super interesting terrain of experimentation because on a consistent basis, there's been a performance-based contract there. On some innovative pilots have been tried with longer performance-based contract. Some studies have been done there to try to assess objectively what were the benefits of those contracts. So I think that now we rely on a pretty sound and solid background of information that meditate on that are enough to warrant what I'm going to present just after. So a couple of characteristics: longer term commitment of public and private, the private sector being paid only on performance. We don't really ask anymore or order, the public does not order anymore specifically what to do, how to do, and when to do it, but rather transfer the assets to the infrastructure to the private sector, which is going to be paid upon the achievement of results. So obviously there's going to be incentive to less costly proactive management, and that's part of the big game changer. Instead of waiting for the road to deteriorate on doing reactive maintenance, when the private sector sees its own interest in proactively managing the road network, it will allow to address the three key issues that I was highlighting a bit before. We also intend to, with those performance-based contracts, address road safety and resilience of infrastructure. So the graph on the right is just like to again illustrate what are the difference of cost now between the solution of regular maintenance, rehabilitation / reconstruction. So what do we have in various countries in the world? Those performance-based contracts offer significant reduction in cost for the fiscal cost, no, for the Ministry of Finance. We demonstrated in Brazil that over 5 years it was 20% saving. 2 cycles were 40% saving. So there's a lot to be gained in terms of fiscal saving, and I'm not going to come back on what we were discussing on the agenda, that this represent in terms of competitiveness. So the idea is really to do that at scale, to shift this paradigm of road asset management. Remember, before the 80s, 70s, 80s, the road were directly managed by the public, which had its own material, which had its own workers. It's been shifted to contracting to the private sector, the management of those roads, but through input-based contract. The idea here now is really to change gear on move towards performance-based contract, long-term performance-based contract. So we have a lot of benefits for stakeholders in those contracts. I'm going to, I'm running a bit out of time, not going to go too much in detail, but it's good for the road agency, it's good for the road users, it's good for the private sector actually, so which should be of interest for you. Gives more visibility on the long term. It allows to this increased focus. Gives more leeway for more business development potential on this increased delegation of responsibility. Gives more flexibility in the way the private sector is going to handle their things. So we have these kind of two types of performance-based contracts. This is the novelty of the approach, extending the duration of the contracts on one side, 8 to 10 years. So far, there was a limitation in many countries for public contracting to 5 years. Now there's the emergence of some countries which allow public contracting for longer term construction. In this, the idea is really to let the design of the rehabilitation to the private sector, and payment being done by output rather than in input on achievement of results during the maintenance phase. For longer term, there's this approach of CREMA PPP, performance-based contract PPP, where with or without toll, the private sector is being paid for the results at the level of the achievement of the results, either through availability payment or through a mix of toll and availability payment. So the example of Brazil, so we're using Brazil as a guinea pig of this approach. So in Brazil, the bank introduced the first generation of CREMA by the late 90s. There's been a lot of experience there. On a lot of interest from Brazil to expand the model. So Brazil, federal government, it's 60,000 kilometers of road. There's a number of states, 28 states there in total, 250,000 of paved road for cumulatively in the state between the states on the federal government. So it's quite an extensive network. In the 2010, the federal government was committed to this approach and decided to transfer a good chunk of the federal road network, these 60,000 kilometers, to the private sector. In 2009, there was a decree identifying performance-based contract as the main modality for road asset management. And we see the result, no? 2010 to 2015, we see that the blue, that's each histogram is the federal road network in each one of the states. And we see clearly the blue increasing. So from 2010 to 2015, about 2/3 of the federal road network has been covered by performance-based contract, and it has shown results. Unfortunately, there hasn't been consistency in the management, in the implementation of those contracts. Because of the crisis in Brazil in 2014, many of those contracts have been stopped, have been stalled, haven't been completed. And as a result, look at the third histogram, we see clearly deterioration of the road conditions. So it is a good solution, but there's a need for consistency in the long term. The program that we are having, we have a big multi-phase approach program in Brazil. In total, is $2.5 billion, out of which 1.6 billion financed by the World Bank. There are already 12 states which have shown interest or are already in implementation or preparation of projects. So this is something on the move. And we hope that with this kind of work at scale, we will effectively be able to to change this, to shift this paradigm of road asset management. So that's the state where we're working. So that's the clear vision that we are having at the bank. We want really to push strongly to more delegation to the private sector of the road asset management through those long-term performance-based contracts. That will require in many countries piloting it. That will require in many countries to adapt the legislation and the regulation. But there's a strong strategy on endeavor on our side really to get there and to get results. The big question that remains is for unpaved roads, road asset. What should be the approach? I personally don't think that the performance-based contract for those roads is the panacea. There's other expense. There are other expenses that have shown results in the past, but they've shown results, but not necessarily consistency. You know? So same as for the Brazil experience in 2015. How do we address those lack of consistency? So we think that this is something that needs still to be worked on. We have launched. Or we are on the verge of launching a couple of studies to really make a broad take stock of the past 20-25 years of experience in the support of the improvement of road asset management for unpaved roads, to try to see what were the key bottlenecks. Well, first of all, what were the key successes, and what were the key bottlenecks that impeded those successes to last. We will probably come with a strategy in the coming months along in similar or mirroring a bit the strategy that we are having on the paved road. So I'll stop here. I hope that I was not too long. I was too long actually, but I will remain available for any question or areas of interest. Let me stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. It was very interesting. We have repercussions in the chat, people asking for us to share your presentation. If you authorize us, we will distribute the PowerPoint. Due to time restraints, we will now shift to the presentation by Vincent, and we will unify questions and answers at the end of the webinar. Vincent Piron, he is also French. He is an engineer and consultant with vast experience in models of project assessment and the effect of projects on public budgets and growth. He collaborates frequently and for many years now with CICA, with the Working Group on Infrastructure, also with the French Federation, and he will present today about a very interesting experience of application of program GLOPRAM that has been developed in cooperation with other French specialists for Avijac or the area of Avijac. Vincent, you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So I have the pleasure and the honor to present you the GLOPRAM, which is software that I have developed with high specialists in economy and transports. In fact, the idea came from the observation that everybody says that the transport networks, road and railways are absolutely useful, but it's difficult to find figures just giving by how much these benefits can be evaluated, how much these benefits can be evaluated. And so I worked with the University of Nice, the University of Cergy-Pontoise, and to try to look at the externalities of the project. which means that the socio-economic benefits that the project creates. So for all kind of project, in fact, you have to start from a socio-economic analysis, on the environmental analysis, and then the economists stop there. You have, after the budgetary people who have no connection really with the economist, and you have a gap that I've tried to fill between the socioeconomic analysis, the GDP evaluation, and once you have the GDP evaluation, I mean the delta GDP due to a road available, then you just apply the fiscal rules of the country and you have the budget. So you look at the budget from the two point of view, the expenses, as it has been developed by Eric. Now you have also to look at the revenues, and the revenues, they come from the socioeconomic benefits, then GDP, then fiscal taxes. And this is an approach which is rather new and can help be used as a decision support tool to really evaluate the budgetary impact of a project. For instance, or if you take France with a high level of taxes everywhere, when the Minister of Finance gives 100 to the Minister of Transport to build road, at the end of the works, the Minister of Finance have back 50, which means that half of the money which is given by the Minister of Finance comes back to the Minister of Finance. So that the real cost of the road is not 100, it is 50. So what we have developed, starting from the cost-benefit analysis, we have established work analysis. Why? Because if the country is doing 100% of its work by itself, then all the spending stays in the country. If it is partially using external foreign support through highly skilled workers of equipment, part of the money goes in another country. So you need to have a clear work analysis. Then you evaluate the increase of GDP model, then the budget model, which enables a predictive estimate of the impact of the project on the GDP, and the budget and you have to do this for the various stakeholders. So as we are speaking of maintenance, I've had the opportunity to work on the network road maintenance in Abidjan for the past 3 years. And we we have prepared the use of the GlobeTram, and this is what I will present to you. Before going just for maintenance, I have just 2 slides showing the way the GlobeTram is working. If you take a traditional toll-free contract for a motorway, these are the expenses, and usually Minister of Finance stops at that. But if you look at the benefits, economic benefits that the projects provides, then the fiscal return coming from these benefits, you have this this green bar. We show you that if you have negative here, you have positive here, and you have the balance. It is not the exact difference because the matter is rather complicated. So, well, but you see This being taken as a reference. If you go for a design, build, operate, maintain, you have less expenses because the private sector optimize. You have the same benefits, so the balance is more positive. If you go for a PPP's government paid, so that means toll-free, you have more expenses because you have the financial cost to be paid. The benefits are slightly higher and the result is still positive. And if you go for a concession privately financed, you have nearly no, in my example, no expenses at the beginning because the borrowing and the equity will cover the full cost of the works. So you have a huge benefits. And I have also different type of contract. This is just to show you the way of reasoning when you build a road, what means a road in a good state. It means keeping the efficiency of the production factor as it was foreseen at the beginning of the works. And if you improve it, then you decrease the cost of production factor and you increase the GDP. If you discount the results, well, for this, the expenses are not discounted, and all Minister of Finance never discounted their cost, which is, in my opinion, rather strange, but that's it. If in a more economical approach you discount it, you have same sorting of the contracts, but with expenses which and revenues which are lower, and for a high level of discount rates at 4%, the PPPs are more efficient than the traditional. If you put 2%, you will have the opposite. The PPP will be more expensive than the traditional, which means that the decision between PPPs and traditional way of contracting is purely a kind of consideration. You have to consider just the discount rate of the state, the budgetary discount rate, and make your decision on that. So now for maintenance, what was the reasoning in Abidjan? The idea is the maintenance cost is an insurance premium against loss of productivity. It is not to improve the productivity. It is to avoid the loss of productivity, as Eric has said previously. So it directly affects the GDP by maintaining the production factor at their best. So what did we do? We compared the minimal and optimal maintenance and identification of the additional revenue for the state, look at the net benefits for users and population. And on this consideration, we have prepared the kind of feasibility analysis of implementation of a specific toll, which could, or tax, which could be used to finance the maintenance and the sensitivity analysis, obviously. So, what's the methodology for comparing the two scenarios with low level of maintenance, a high level of maintenance? We have the work period. So for this, you have to look at the detailed budgetary impact, salaries by differentiating what is local, what is foreign, equipment, energy, and additional consumption of the cars I add due to the work. And then you split formal and informal activities Why? Because the informal salaries don't pay tax, and the informal companies don't pay. So you have to look at that in detail to evaluate the real cost for the country doing such or such kind of maintenance. Now, if you go for the operation period, what are the benefits? For transport, the main benefits are time saved and vehicle operation cost saved. Time saved means that the fraction, the part of the time saved is used to work more. If you work more, you produce more, then GDP increase, then the tax increases. For energy, it is mainly the cost reduction and the availability. When you have somewhere energy, you can do something. You can develop the region where the energy is energy, I mean electricity. Education and health, it is the same kind of reasoning, but much more difficult to quantify. The idea of GloPram is to quantify all what is possible to quantify. So, what did we do in detail? First, we started by the description of the present network and the present traffic flows for cars and trucks. Cars, in fact, don't affect really the road. The car are too light to really damage the road. It's only trucks and buses which are damaging. And then we do the traffic forecast for the HGV buses and cars. Then we try to evaluate using the well-known HDM4 software and another one, which is a French one, which is called L2R program, to evaluate the evolution of the network service level according to the maintenance level. Then we estimate the true budgetary cost of the maintenance, as I showed you just on the precedent slide. Then we evaluate the network quality evolution according to maintenance. Why? Because it is the only way to evaluate the speed evolution of the network, not the total travel time spent and vehicle use costs. You see, it's rather complicated. The full reasoning is rather complicated, but it has to be done if we want to evaluate the positive effect of maintenance. And then we can estimate the evolution of accessibility to public shopping. If the speed decreases because the road is worse, then the accessibility decreases. Then the efficiency of the Abidjan city decreases. And then if the efficiency decrease, GDP decrease, and so on. So as we have said, more accessibility gives more GDP. Separate formal job for salary tax, but the informal has a consumption activities which create also through the VAT additional revenues for the government. And then we add all the fiscal additional revenues due to this GDP increase. So, to summarize, we have studied cars, taxis, cabs, trucks, and firms. The firms also, they have to be looked at separately because you may have decision taken by the firm management to go, not to go at such or such place or such activities according to the transport cost. Then you appraise the additional revenues, and then you must make the balance for all that different participants of the whole life of the city. It is rather complicated, I would say, but with some simplification, you can have figures which make sense. And this is why when you think at the PFRAM, that certainly you know all about, the PFRAM being developed by IMF and World Bank as an evaluation of the fiscal risk of a project, it is clearly written in the notice that first, the PFRAM does not replace a comprehensive project assessment and does not constitute a cost-benefit analysis. That is clear. You have to start by a cost-benefit analysis. But therefore, the PFRAM does not provide information on the fiscal implication of the project when you look at the positive effect of the project. The PFRAM is just done to put a green light, yellow or red light, but based on the expenses of the project. And what is not done, because it is another skill, I would say, is to have this consideration of the positive aspect of the project. And this is why we have developed the blueprint. So how it worked? It worked very simply. You have the HDM4 for evaluation the maintenance consequences, the level, the quality of the road according to the level of maintenance, and L2R program, which is the French one. Well, the twin parallel, I will not go into the detail. Then you need the traffic evaluation. Then you enter the country tax laws and regulation, the financial information, and then the traditional socioeconomic analysis for people and biodiversity. And you have your results, additional GDP, then additional tax revenue, then pricing proposal if you have people, for instance, the trucks, you can very well identify the trucks, that the trucks are deteriorating the pavement, and ask the truck company to participate to maintenance, at which level the model can give you an idea of what would be politically acceptable. So this is a little more detailed sketch. Scheme, sorry. M4 giving traffic forecast for HGV, personal car. BACAS is the local name of the minibuses and taxis, and the time loss due to congestion. HGM4 and L2R are providing the economic cost borne by users, by the road duration and the social noise. Then this is converted in monetary value with the environmental assessment. Then it is globalized here, and the net benefits for user is shown, and then the total acceptability and potential commercial revenues for road maintenance is evaluated. We have made a survey asking more than 1,000 people if they were ready to pay to have better roads within Abidjan. And we have a positive answer from this point of view. The key point being the fact that people are ready to pay, provided they are sure that the money goes really to the road maintenance and not elsewhere. So we compare the two scenarios. You recognize the way HDM4 is doing his output. You have a scenario that we name 0, with nothing during 5 years, then some strong investments in road maintenance. Then another scenario, which is presented here, this being given automatically by HDM4. And what is the result? The result is that this scenario number 1 compared to scenario number 0 is more expensive by 25 million. But if you look at the additional revenues coming from the additional fiscal revenues, it is 67 million, much higher than the additional 25 million. In NPV term, this 27 would be only 22, but this 25 will be something like 10. So it is a way to quantify all what has been presented by Eric about the need of maintenance and the optimizing of the money. This is, in a few words, the work that we have done for Abidjan. What is a pity is that due to, I don't know which reason, the program has been stopped towards the end. I think it is due to the fact that it's financed by MCC, and MCC, the duration of the contract is only 4 years, and we were reaching the 4 years without the full completion of the GLOPRAM application. So what I show you is that at the beginning of the job we did, but MCC refused to, well, be a little more flexible, which is a pity, but it's like that. Anyhow, the methodology and the software are ready, and we can do the job starting from a cost-benefit analysis for urban zone or interurban zone. We can apply the same process. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vincent. It has been very interesting. Let's hope that we can get financing sources to continue with these studies that without a doubt will contribute to the improvement of the maintenance of road networks in different places around the world. We do have some questions. We have exceeded our time for today, but for those who can stay for a little while, we will convey some questions. And Dean, you had one question.
Yes, the questions was meant to Eric, but maybe Vincent or someone from the audience could answer. So the question was, how is technology such as digital tools and AI, so artificial intelligence, being incorporated into the World Bank's approach to infrastructure maintenance? But we can broaden the questions to every approach to maintenance, to infrastructure maintenance. So Vincent, I don't know if you would like to answer this or someone else.
Well, artificial intelligence, I don't know, in the case, I'm thinking at Abidjan, the real problem is to evaluate properly the speed at which the roads deteriorate if there is no maintenance. So it is a physical problem. So the artificial intelligence, I'm not sure that it brings something really positive, except being a way to manage huge quantity of information. It's clear. But the crucial point is the physical behavior of the road and the quality of the work when they are done initially and the quality of the maintenance work. So I'm not sure that the artificial intelligence applies really to this. It can improve, but I think it is a second order of benefit.
I will say something about future activities of this working group, CICA and FIIC working group regarding investment in maintenance and awareness of road networks. We are working in different sectors to use, well, I don't know if specifically in artificial intelligence or only artificial intelligence, but yes, regarding modern techniques with satellite images to survey the state of the road networks. We have made significant progress to survey the current state of the paved roads. Apparently, it is possible with satellite images to establish the status and the state of a paved road. We are working to extend this to natural roads. But what we can say is that probably this will be the topic of a coming webinar in coming months of this same working group, for which we hope to bring the breakthroughs in these topics and the specialists that are working on this topic. I wanted to expand this dialogue to those who are still connected to see what do you see as possibilities to contribution of private financing to these efforts of financing, of maintenance specifically. So in this regard, the space is open for anyone who wants to open the microphone and tell us about experiences in your specific areas of expertise. What expectations do you see for the private sector to contribute to the finance of maintenance?
Alberto, you're muted. I can see you talking.
Oh, yes. Good morning. I think you wanted to say something, Alberto, about this or any other topic? I think that I have some glitch or something. Can you hear me now? Well, if there are no other comments, I dare suggest a task for all participants, especially for developing countries. Funding for maintenance of road assets is usually the first variable to be suppressed when there are fiscal contractions. That happens even in homes, but we believe that there is a lack of awareness in society, in the audience or administrators, of the severe damage that it means to omit the adequate maintenance of road assets or infrastructure assets that, as Eric said, are huge and not very visible for the audience and for administrations that take it for granted. We tried to give value to or to assess that damage. Probably Globram will contribute to give value to or to give a value to the loss due to lack of maintenance in Abidjan or any other sectors, but I want to suggest as a topic for our working group and for future activities to try to give a number to what usually is a debt in infrastructure that countries assume or take without being aware, without knowing when they do not do proper maintenance on their assets. That is a severe debt, more severe than foreign debt or domestic debt in financial markets. And it pays interest from day zero, from day one, with no grace period, I'd say. As it was said here, and as Eric and Vincent said, the interests are paid when a road is not maintained. Interests are paid by users whose car or truck breaks more quickly, for those who take longer to reach their destination. It also leads to when you want to repair it, it costs way more than proportionally the correct maintenance. Those are interest rates that are charged every day because proper maintenance was not done in a timely manner. Hopefully, we can all together, or each of us in their area of expertise, to establish a value of this damage for letting road assets deteriorate in each of the countries.
We have taken much from your time. If there are no further comments, we then thank you for participating in this workshop. We remind you that this meeting was recorded in both languages, so it will be promptly distributed to you all. And the presentations, we have been authorized by Eric to disseminate these presentations, and I understand that Vincent is also in agreement to disseminate these documents among the participants and anyone who might be interested. If there's nothing further, then thank you all very much. Hopefully we will see you in CICA's and FIIC's next webinar. Undine, do you have any final words?
No, I think you said everything, but thank you. And if you would like to join the CICA working group, don't hesitate to drop me an email. I have put my email in the chat box.
I'm sorry, can you come again? All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good day to you all. Thank you for participating. Goodbye.